Okay, we're going to start.
Recording in progress.
Okay, good evening everybody. It's Monday night, so it's Parsha. This week is, unlike most years, it's Vayakhel and Pekudei together, but this year is just the Parsha Vayakhel. Now there's a famous question asked that every letter, every word in Torah is exact. So we have in Terumat, what do you know? No, there's no noise from outside. Nobody's there. So let her in. Okay, so Truman Tetzava. You have it?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, Truman Tetzava is Hashem telling Moshe Rabbeinu how to build the Mishkan. Vayakhel Pekudei is a repetition of Truman Tetzava, except in those two portions, Hashem is telling Moshe Rabbeinu how to build the Mishkan, the sanctuary. And Vayakhel Pekudei tells us exactly that they did it. So if you think about it, in one sentence, the Torah could have said that the Jews did exactly what Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to do. Vayakhel is 132 psukim. Pekudei is 92 psukim. It's over 222 psukim, whatever, yeah? Which is, by the way, more sentences than the Megillah of Esther. So it's a lot of repeating. So why is the Torah actually repeating the whole Vayakhel Pekudei? Even when the Torah could have just said they did exactly what Hashem told them to do. So at the beginning of Parshas Pekudei that we'll learn next week, the Torah says, Eila Pekudei HaMishkan, Mishkan HaEdus. Twice the word Mishkan. So our sages tell us, especially Chassidus, discuss this a lot. There's the heavenly Mishkan. There's a Beis HaMikdash in heaven. Mishkan and Beis HaMikdash are interchangeable. Okay? So it says there's a temple in heaven and there's a temple on earth. Temple in heaven in Shemayim is what Hashem builds. Temple on earth is what we build. So Trumat Tetzava teaches us the Mishkan that Hashem builds us. In other words, the power from above. And Vayakhel Pekudei is telling us our need and how we actually build the Beis HaMikdash itself. And what's interesting to note, I'm not going to answer the question this week, maybe next week, but in Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe asks a question. If you look at Trumat Tetzava, okay, first it discusses the utensils of the Beis HaMikdash. Trumat talks about the Ark, the Mizbeach, the Shulchan, the Menorah. Later on, it talks about the actual construction of the building, the edifice of the Mishkan. In Parshas Ki Sisa, the Torah says, don't forget to keep Shabbos. So the order over there is very interesting. Utensils, Mishkan itself, and keeping Shabbos. If you look in this Parsha Vayakhel, Vayakhel is just the opposite. First, Hashem tells, keep Shabbos. The opening pasuk says, keep Shabbos. Second pasuk, keep Shabbos. Then the Torah tells us how they built the actual building. And then the Torah tells us how they built the Kalim. The opposite, reverse order of what happened in the end when Hashem commanded Moshe Rabbeinu and Trumat Tetzava. And one has to do with the way it's from above. The power that Hashem gives us is one way. And what we have to do, in other words, to paraphrase it, Hashem gives it to us Milmaila Lamata, coming from higher lower, and we do it Milmata Lamaila, from lower to higher. We're building the Mishkan on our own to Hashem. But what's very interesting, the introduction to the building of the Mishkan says Vayakhel Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu gathered. In Hebrew, the word kohol, which is Vayakhel Moshe, he made a kohol. Kohol is a congregation. Basically a tzibur, community. That's a kohol. We say in davening, kol ha-kodesh hazeh, this holy community, a tzibur. A kohol in halacha is a very interesting concept. A minyan, which makes a kohol, by the way, a tzibur, that you can, Kaddish, Kedusha, Baruch Hu, Torah reading, all that stuff, you need a minyan. That is, so it says in our sages, especially in the Rishonim, the Achreinim talk about this a lot. A minyan is not 10 individuals. When you have a tzibur, it becomes a new entity called a community. In other words, it's not 9 individuals are 9 individuals. Kohol is representing that a community means there is no person. It's a community.
It's a unit.
It's a unit. It's a unit.
It's a unit. It's not one.
And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the Jews, I'm telling you now the laws of building the Mishkan. It came down from Har Sinai, right? Yom Kippur, Rashi says this was the day after Yom Kippur, when he came down with the second set of the luches of the tablets. And Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the Jews, now build the Mishkan. So Moshe Rabbeinu is giving them the, so to speak, the prerequisite for Jews to be able to build a Mishkan has to be Vayakhel Moshe. The Jews must be united. Hashem doesn't rest on a place that's not united. In fact, there's an interesting halacha. The Gemara says, Tzibor lo mes. A community never dies. Individuals die. People, the community don't die. It just changes status of this people to that, these people to those people. But the community never dies because it's not it's a new entity completely. It's an entity of ultimate unity. It's an element, an entity of ultimate unity. It's like, to give a gashmias to a physical marshal, we discussed this in the past. A sports team, if a team, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, whatever, not boxing, but most sports, soccer, there's no such thing as me. It's us, the team. If a guy in sports wants to be the one getting the most baskets and he doesn't care about anybody else in the team, they'll never win the game. You only win the game when it's not about me scoring or you scoring, it's about us scoring. Right? Whether it's making the runs, the field goals, touchdowns, whatever in any sport that you're talking about, right? The concept of a team is not individuals. It's a new entity called us. I mentioned many times, it's a remarkable concept. There was a coach, a professional coach, that was making his players crazy. He kept working them over, And the guy said to him, maybe you'll stop already. He said, you know when I'll stop? When the name on the front of your uniform means more than the name on the back. In sports, your personal name is on the back and the team's name is in the front. He said, as long as you guys give more credence to the name in the back than the name in the front, I'm going to keep bugging you. When you guys get to the level that the team, the achdus, the unity of the team in the front is really what makes it, then I'll stop. And that's the mashal of achdus. And in fact, we find this unity in the Mishkan. Even though there were different gifts, there's machzas a shekel, right? 1/2 a shekel, everybody was equal. Rich didn't give more, the 1/2 a shekel, but poor didn't give less. There was also that they bought the korbanos with, right? That we discussed. But they also had the machzas a shekel for the adonim. The adonim were the sockets that the boards of the Mishkan actually went into to hold them. There were silver sockets. Now, where did they make that from?
The silver.
The silver from the 1/2 shekels, the second 1/2 a shekel that the Jews gave. Okay. Now,
on 4 corners?
No, and at the bottom of each board. Not on the floor. And each board went into the sockets that held it. So that was also given by Jews 1/2 a shekel, which meant nobody gave more and nobody gave less. Now these sockets are the foundation of the Mishkan. That's what held it up. So Hashem's telling us that in the foundation of the Mishkan, everybody is equal. It's not my Mishkan more than your temple, more than my temple. It's all the same. Everybody is equal. But the Rebbe explains interestingly, Vayakhel is even more than the unity of a half a shekel. Half a shekel means I'm incomplete without you. So I'm half, you're half. But I'm still a half. It's not total bittul. It's not total subservience. Vayakhel means you don't exist at all. It's only the community. You're not even half a person. You're part of the community. Machzis a shekel, yeah, I'm only a half. Somebody else completes me. But at the same time, it's half a shekel. It's me. I'm a half a shekel. Vayakhel, the Rebbe explains, is even more than the machzis a shekel, that it's mamish, the ultimate unity of the Jewish people. Where else do we find this major concept? By Matan Torah. Before Hashem gave the Torah to the Jews, the pasuk said, "Vayichan Sham Yisrael Keneged Ahad." Vayichan singular. It didn't say they camped. He camped singular. All the Jews together, which means that in order for Hashem to give the Torah to the Jewish people, there had to be ultimate unity amongst the Jewish people. If there was strife, fighting, not getting along, Hashem said, I'm not giving the Torah. Hashem said, you want me to build a Mishkan? I need Vayakhel Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu says, we have to be gathered together, and then when there's unity, that's where Hashem can rest. The last Mishnah, we said this many times, the last Mishnah of the entire Mishnayos says, Le'motza HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kli Hamachzik Bracha Ela Hasholim. The only vessel for peace, the only vessel for blessing that Hashem found in the world is Sholim, peace.
So the only vessel for peace,
is unity. Vayakhel. And the real unity is when there's not me and you, it's us. I'm not more important than you, and you're not more important than me. We're all equal.
Because it all stems from the fact that we're all created.
Because we are all one. Yes, and our neshamas all originate in the same place. Moshe Rabbeinu was not more Jewish than us. And the biggest sinner was not less Jewish than Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay? Because the essence, we all come from the same place. And the essence is the same. That's the ultimate unity. What?
Just thinking, a person is a miniature Beit HaMikdash.
Right, within each one of us.
So then does this unity aspect follow with a person as well? And a person...
Yes, we will get into that soon.
So would it be the simcha part that it makes the unity?
Let's wait. I will talk about it because I'm going to say a one-liner and then we'll see later.
Sorry, I'm just thinking.
A person needs to be at peace within himself. We have 248 limbs and 365 veins or sinews, whatever you want to call them. That's a lot. The only way a person is healthy when they all get along. Nobody feels themselves. A healthy person doesn't have a headache, their hand doesn't hurt, their foot doesn't hurt, their heart doesn't hurt. Right? Because that doesn't mean, if you don't feel yourself, you're united with everybody else. You realize everybody else has their function, right? Then we get along. Then you're healthy. Once you start feeling yourself, oh, I have a headache, that means you're sick. But we'll get into that. It's not only that. Peace. What?
You touched on it.
I know, but we'll get into it soon.
But you have a headache. You have a headache. If
right now I don't, by the way.
No. If Plony has a headache, he has a headache.
Yeah. That means he's feeling his head.
He's feeling his head? So if...
All of a sudden you realize I have a head. So you don't feel, a healthy person doesn't feel I have a heart and a head and an arm. It's all working together.
Function, so.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see it later. Okay, another thing.
That's crazy.
The pasuk starts with Moshe Rabbeinu gathering together, and he says, "These are the words that Hashem commanded me to tell you." Okay, Moshe Rashi says, very interesting Rashi, that he told me, Le'emar lochem, to tell you, okay? Now, it says, he starts off with the laws of Shabbos. Starts off with the laws of Shabbos, and then Moshe Rabbeinu says, okay, this is what, now he's telling them to build a Mishkan, and he says, these are the words, Zeh hadavar shatziv Hashem le'emar. Okay? This is the words that Hashem is commanding, and Rashi says, he's commanding me to tell you. So from here, the Gemara learns out, what's the connection between Shabbos and the Mishkan? So the Gemara learns to teach us that building of the Mishkan, as holy as it is, doesn't desecrate Shabbos. Another thing that the building of the Mishkan or the Beis HaMikdash doesn't desecrate and doesn't push off is, as Rambam brings down the halacha from the Gemara, Ein mevatlen tinekes shel Beis Rabban afilu lebinyan Beis HaMikdash. You don't stop children from learning Torah, even to build the Beis HaMikdash.
Ein mevatlen?
Tinekes shel Beis Rabban. It's an expression Chazal means kids learning. Afilu lebinyan Beis HaMikdash. That means if kids are in the middle of learning and Mashiach comes, okay guys, let's go build the Beis HaMikdash. They're going to tell them, wait a minute, but they're not finished learning yet. When they're finished learning, then we're going to go build the Beis HaMikdash. Okay? Now, as holy as the Beis HaMikdash is, building the Beis HaMikdash, you have a concept called Shabbos, and you have a concept of learning Torah, which are above world. Now, I'm going to go off a little bit, and I'm going to come back, like we do, we're going to make a cholent, and we're going to come back, and the cholent hopefully will taste good. Because it's not my own. Nothing I say here is my own. It's interesting. The fact, there's another din the Gemara learns out from this pasuk, putting Shabbos next to the Mishkan. The Gemara learns out what is forbidden to do on Shabbos. What are the biblical working creativity on Shabbos that's forbidden? So the Gemara says what was done in the temple, in the Beis HaMikdash, whether it's the construction or the functioning of the Beis HaMikdash, that's called work, and that's forbidden to do on Shabbos. If it wasn't done in the Mishkan, it's not necessarily forbidden. Okay? Where does the Gemara learn it out from? What's called the Hekesh. It puts the laws of Shabbos right before the building of the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, so now let's understand, why is it? Why are the laws of Shabbos derived from the Mishkan? I mean, okay, the Torah says you put it next to it, we learn, but why is it conceptually? What's the connection between Shabbos and the Mishkan? Shabbos, the laws of Shabbos, our sages tell us, is Yesod HaEmunah. Shabbos is the foundation of Jewish belief. That's why Shabbos is very strict. You know, if you publicly desecrate Shabbos, doesn't apply today. You publicly desecrate Shabbos, you have a din of a non-Jew, and you know all the laws of a non-Jew apply to somebody who openly, publicly desecrates Shabbos. Not today, but for whatever. So, why is Shabbos Yesod HaEmunah? Why is Shabbos the foundation of the world, of a belief? Because Shabbos tells us that Hashem created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th. Why do we keep Shabbos? The Torah says, because Hashem created the world in 6 days, and now He's resting on the 7th day. That means we believe that Hashem created the world and rested on the 7th. When it comes to the Ten Commandments, or even over here, it says a little bit different here. Sheishis Yamim Te'oseh Malach. In the Aseret Dibros it says, not Te'oseh is passive, we'll get into that later also. Sheishis Yamim Ta'aseh Malachtecha means 6 days you should do work. You have to. And the Sifri says it's a mitzvah saseh to work. Now, when it comes to Shabbos, what is work? In other words, technically, flicking a switch, let's say electricity is biblically forbidden. It's a whole question and all. But let's say electricity is biblically forbidden. Yeah? It's definitely forbidden. The question is biblical or rabbinic. So a guy flicks a switch. Yeah? That's called work. Yet you would get stoned if you were warned, you know, so to speak. Yet schlepping this heavy table back and forth a whole day, that's not desecrating Shabbos. You're not doing malacha. You might not, there's another mitzvah on Shabbos, tashbisu, to rest. So you might not be resting on Shabbos, but you're definitely not desecrating work. Now, how do you classify work? And a lot of people ask this question, I can't drive a car. I enjoy driving a car. What's the big deal? You get stoned, you know what I mean? But
Or
not in Meir
Or
Sharim.
doing something creative.
Yeah, so the point is, when Hashem created the world, I'm spending time on this because it's fundamental Jewish belief. Hashem didn't create the world by schlepping, They say the reason why it took Noach 120 years to build the ark. Can you imagine today you want to build an ark in Beverly Hills? It'll take you 500 years to get the permits. Hashem made the world in 6 days because he didn't need any permits from anybody. You know what I mean? Can you imagine? If Hashem had to get permits to build the world, he still wouldn't have created it yet. Okay, so Hashem, in fact, in Chazal there's an expression, Lei ba'amal v'lo b'yigia bara kadosh baruch hu. Hashem didn't create the world with effort and work. Hashem said, Vayomer Elokim, or we say in davening, from Tehillim, Hu Amar Vayehi. Hashem said, and it became. So Hashem didn't work. Okay? If the whole concept of Shabbos is that Hashem worked, so to speak, did malacha 6 days and rested on the 7th, then the whole concept of work doesn't make sense. Because number one, Hashem didn't work. What does it mean Hashem did? Hashem didn't work. Hashem created. Hashem created for 6 days. 7th day he stopped creating.
But our creation, none of it is ex nihilo. It's all already there. It's just changing the
Correct.
around.
But relatively speaking, what was done... Okay, so let me come to... That's why we learn it out from what was done in the Mishkan. What was the purpose of creation? Because Hashem wanted a home. Dira b'tachteinu, the Medrash says. Hashem wanted a home down here. Right? Where was God's physical edifice down here?
Mishkan.
The Mishkan, the base of Mikdash, same thing, right? The Mishkan, we're doing a Mishkan, not say Mishkan. That was God's physical home. So what was the purpose of creation?
For the home.
For the home, which is the Mishkan. Therefore, we're talking Shabbos is creativity versus not creativity, not work versus not work. It's not that Hashem rested, at the end of the week, he said, Baruch Hashem, it's Shabbos, I don't have to go to work today. I mean, what it means is Hashem created for 6 days. 7 days Hashem stopped creating. What is the purpose of creation? The Mishkan. So therefore, what is derived as creativity? Things that were done in the Mishkan. Because that's the purpose why Hashem made the world. So the purpose of learning what is the definition of work, of creativity, not work, it's creativity. But let me take it a step further. A Jew is always supposed to connect to Hashem. Right? To cling to Hashem. So therefore, during 6 days God created, therefore a person to connect to Hashem needs to create. We have to copy Hashem. Right? Mahu, just like Hashem does this, we do this. Right? That's what the Gemara says. Lo dafka says to cling to Hashem. Or hidavik b'midas, to cling to Hashem's midas. Meaning, if during the week Hashem creates, 6 days, it's constant recreation. Hashem works 6 days, creates, so therefore Hashem says, I want you to create. When a Jew creates, that's why it's a mitzvah to work, create. Work means creativity. Hashem says, because when you work, when you create, you're connecting to Creator. But again, when Hashem creates world, that's an association between Hashem and world. He's creating the world. So Hashem is lowering himself, spiritually, Hashem is lowering himself to a level to create world. Right? But that's not the essence of Hashem. The essence of Hashem is way above creation, way above worlds. In fact, olam, world, comes from the word halam, concealment. It's a concealment of God. So, during the week, Hashem lowered himself to deal with the world. So therefore, what do? Connect Hashem to that level? We have to create. Hashem creates, we copycat him, so to speak. We emulate him, so then we connect to that level of Hashem. Shabbos, Hashem stopped creating. That means Hashem now is in a level of higher than world. He's not creating, he's not actively involved in creation. He's above world. So what does a Jew connect to Hashem on Shabbos? Hashem connects to a Jew on Shabbos. A Jew connects to Hashem on Shabbos in the supernatural level of Hashem, not the natural level of creator that creates the world, but the infinite level of Hashem. That's why Shabbos is a holy day. The Mishkan was that holy day that eventually the ultimate Mishkan is the third temple that Mashiach is going to build that would be eternal. What?
Hashem is constantly
Creating.
So he doesn't stop on Shabbat. Like the fact that there's rain and wind and leaves, like everything keeps on going on Shabbos. So how do I understand that?
It's a very good question. I'm going to repeat the question. I don't know if the Zoom people can hear the question. The question was, but Hashem does create on Shabbos. The world is constantly created, so therefore Hashem is creating the world on Shabbos. Hashem runs the world. There's rain and there's people born and people dying and people all the lamites malachas. Hashem does on Shabbos. But in fact, in Chassidus asks the question that if Hashem stopped creating, so then everything should disappear instantaneously, right? Because there's no power anymore in it. So Chassidus and Kabbalah answer that on Shabbos, the creation is through thought, not through speech. In other words, during the week, how did Hashem create the world? With speech. Shabbos, Hashem stopped creating, i.e. stopped speaking. So how is Hashem creating the world? With thought.
So how come on Shabbat we can't even think about work?
Because that's creativity. It's not in the spirit of Shabbos. It's not one of the melachos. It's rabbinically forbidden because you'll come to do something or it's not in the spirit of Shabbos. But let me explain something to answer your question properly. Okay? Hashem doesn't speak and Hashem doesn't think.
Of course.
Okay? Yet, when it says in Chumash, Vayomer Elokim Yehi Or, Hashem said, let there be light. Hashem said, let there be a heaven. Let there be vegetation. Let there be... Now,
That's how we speak.
Hashem doesn't speak. And then in the Haftarah we just read on Tanya Sester Mincha, Ki lo machshvosai machshvoseichem. My thoughts are not like your thoughts. But there is machshava. In Chumash it says, Vayinochem Hashem. Okay? That Hashem regretted. That means in thought. Okay? Now obviously it's clear, we learned this many times in Tanya, but to bring it up because this completes this aspect of it. In fact, the Rambam recently, the Rambam says, whoever says Hashem has an image of a body and does all these things is a total non-believer. I mean, to say, God forbid, Hashem has a mouth and he's talking and, okay? So it says like this. It doesn't mean, God forbid, Hashem speaks. But the Gemara has an expression, Dibra Torah Koloshim B'nei Adam. The Torah speaks in human terms. Now what does that mean? By understanding the concept of speech, by us, we will understand the concept of speech by Hashem. What is the concept of speech by a person? Not the actual verbalizing words. What is the concept of speech? The concept of speech is as follows. I have an intellectual idea, okay? But you don't know it. It's not revealed. Okay? I have an emotion. I love somebody. But I'm not thinking about them all day. I'm at work. Of course I love them. But I'm not thinking about them now. Okay? So that's why there's intellect and emotions. And then Tanya says there's 3 garments. Now what is the purpose of the garment? At least in normal times. A person wears garments to be able to show themselves in public. It's the way you identify, the way you reveal yourself. If a person has let's say you love your family, yeah? And But you're at work. You're not thinking about them. All of a sudden you stop and you think about your family. So you're revealing that love to whom? To yourself. You don't know what I'm thinking. If I want to reveal that feeling to you or to the one I love and I say, I love you, now I'm verbally saying. If I put it on paper or send a gift, then it's coming into action. So thought, speech, and action are the three garments, so to speak, called in Tanya garments, that reveal intellect or emotion. I can know something intellectually, okay? But if I'm not thinking about it now, it's not revealed even to me. That doesn't mean I don't have it. It's just not revealed to me. Thought reveals intellect or emotions to myself. Okay? You don't know what I'm thinking. Words reveal it to somebody else. Action reveals it into something else. I write it on paper. I give a gift. Whatever it may be. So when the Torah says, Hashem said, let there be light, and light became created, it doesn't mean Hashem took a microphone and said, hey, let there be light. It means very simple. The way Chassidus and Kabbalah explain it, Hashem had the power to create light. That power was not revealed. Vayomer Elokim, meaning Hashem revealed. Speech is a revelation of something concealed, correct? Hashem spoke, meaning Hashem revealed that power of light that he had, and light became created. Hashem had the power to create the heaven. Hashem spoke, meaning Hashem revealed that power that he had, and the heavens became created. Whatever, all 6 days of creation.
Who did he reveal it to? There's nobody
To himself. Into the world, that now the world became
No, but
existent.
you said that speech is a revelation to others.
Yeah, but over there, others mean a world. The world.
Okay.
So now, so Hashem created the world with speech. Now he stopped speaking on Shabbos. So how does he create the world on Shabbos? With thought.
So it's still
That means
secret.
thought though,
It's higher.
is higher than speech. Speech is a revelation to you. Right? So I have to speak on your level. You can't speak to a little kid like you speak to an adult. I mean, sometimes you could. Kids sometimes smarter. But instead, you can't, speech is coming out, it's a revelation. Thought is within me. Okay? That's why, by the way, our sages tell us in the Gemara, thought of sin is worse than sin. Hirduhuri Aveda, Koshem mi Aveda. Thought of sin is stricter, more severe than the sin itself. Why? We're not punished for it, because this is an action world. But my garment of thought is much closer to the soul than speech is. Why? You can never stop thinking. You could stop talking unless if you're in shul. In shul you can't stop talking. But you could sometimes stop talking. So, machshava is one with the soul. It's closer to the soul. It's a holier garment than speech. Therefore, when Hashem created the world on Shabbos with thought, it means it's a much holier revelation it's a revelation of godliness. But in a supernatural way, above world, basically, and that's how Hashem creates the world on Shabbos. Now, just one more point over here. In Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe says, it says in Sfarim, why is a person called Adam? So it says like this, Aleph, Daled, Mem, right? Mm-hmm. Aleph is one, that refers to thought. Daled is Dibur, Mem is Ma'aseh. So thought, speech, and action.
What was Aleph? I'm sorry.
Oh, Machshava. 1 second. So the question is, we should be called Madam. Instead of Adam, we should be called Madam. Machshava, Dibur, Ma'aseh. Why is it called, why is Machshava Aleph?
Because it's a close.
So the Alter Rebbe says, because machshava is the garment which is one with the soul. You can never stop thinking. Even if you're not thinking, it's you're thinking that you're not thinking. No, really, you can never stop thinking. Therefore, a blemish on thought is closer to the soul than a blemish in speech or action. But therefore, when Hashem created the world on Shabbos, the creation is going on, but not in a level of speech, which is a revelation on a lower level. It's the level of creation on a higher supernatural level. So 1 second. So I know we got sidetracked a little because of your holy question.
This is great.
That was a great question.
Yeah, it's very good.
Your answer is better than
What?
your answer blew us away.
No, the question was better than the answer. Because the question brings out the answer. Okay, anyway. By the way, this is not, I'm going to say it again. This is not my own. This all says in the books. I'm just telling you what it says in the books. Okay, so let's continue. What?
Is that why on Shabbat, since technically nobody's doing, but yet the world is continuing to run, that's at the moment that you can really see Hashem's revelation?
Yes. It's a holier day.
And
What does holier day mean?
Which means my soul is now more connected to God.
Correct.
That's why I can see that bigger revelation on
I mean,
Shabbat.
you could, I don't, but you could, yeah.
No, because I've learned Rabbeinu Nachman, and this is what he said. So now, based on what you just said, now the light bulb went off.
Okay.
I
Okay.
just want to know if this is the connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shabbos is a holier day. A holier day means there's a greater revelation of godliness. The world is functioning. Yeah, the world is functioning on the level of thought rather than speech. But this explains the whole concept of the creativity, why it's forbidden, the connection between the Mishkan and that. Now, we said before, there's another thing which is also higher than world, and that is learning Torah. Right? You don't stop the kids from learning Torah, even to build a Beis Hamikdash. Okay? So now we find another interesting thing. Torah, generally speaking, is higher than world. The Gemara says, Alpayim Shadna, Gemara in Sanhedrin says, kids say it in the Bar Mitzvah Maimer. Alpayim Shana Kadma Torah La'elam. The Torah was there 2,000 years before the world. Chassidus explains, just in passing, it can't mean 2,000 years, because before the world there was no time. Time began when the world did. So what does it mean, Alpayim Shadna? 2,000 levels, Torah is higher than the world. The 7 days correspond with the 7 midos, right? Chesed, Word, Tiferet, Netzach, Yisod, Malchus. Torah is higher than the world. The Mishkan was to build the world for Hashem. That's in the creation. 7 midos. And therefore we find an interesting thing. Rabbi Moshe Rabbeinu did nothing in the building of the Mishkan. Nothing. He only taught the Jews what to do. He told them what to do. At the end of next week's Parsha Pekudei, it says they brought the Mishkan to Moshe. Here. Rashi says all the way at the end of Pekudei, in middle of Pekudei. They brought the Mishkan to Moshe. Why? Because they was too heavy to pick up, and that we'll discuss next week, because that doesn't make sense. They did it for 7 days up and down. Anyway, they couldn't pick up the Mishkan. And then Rashi says like this, Lefi shaloi asa Moshe shum malacha b'Mishkan, because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do anything whatsoever in the Mishkan, Hashem led him to put up the Mishkan. Yeah? Now, why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu do anything for the Mishkan? I mean, you can imagine building the Mishkan, building the Beis Hamikdash. Yet Moshe Rabbeinu, the Gemara says, Rashi brings it down, did nothing in the making of the Mishkan, except he put it up. Why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu do anything in the Mishkan? Because Moshe Rabbeinu is the level of Torah. Torah is higher than the Mishkan. You don't stop learning Torah for building of the Mishkan. Except Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that gave over the Torah, the laws of building the Mishkan. But the actual Mishkan, Moshe Rabbeinu was above and beyond. Except when it came to the finalization of bringing down the divine presence, then until the Mishkan was put up, the Shekhinah couldn't come down. The divine presence couldn't come down. It wasn't done yet. So the finalization of the Mishkan, which caused the revelation of God to come into the world, that was Moshe Rabbeinu. But Moshe Rabbeinu himself is higher than the Mishkan. And therefore, the bringing down the Mishkan was through Moshe Rabbeinu, and therefore, and it's an interesting thing, Rashi says, we just mentioned that Rashi, at the beginning of Vayakhel, our Parsha, it says, and there's a very strange Rashi. Moshe Rabbeinu says to all the Jews, this is the word, Hasher Tziva Hashem Lema, that God commanded to tell over. Right? It's pretty simple. Rashi says, what does it mean? Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem li leimor lachem. Hashem told me to tell you. What's it saying over here? All over Chumash means Hashem spoke to Moshe and repeated to the Jews. Here he's saying, this is the words that Hashem commanded. Why is Rashi adding li leimer lachem? So the Rebbe explains a very interesting thing. What did Moshe Rabbeinu do? He taught Jews how to build a Mishkan. Right? He told them how to build it. That means a lesson for us. If I know, because I learned more, let's say, and I know better how to build a spiritual home for God more than you do, the pasuk says, Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Jews, God told it to me that I should teach it to you. That means if I have a connection more because I learned more, whatever the situation is, somebody learned more, and they have an ability to help somebody else build their own Mishkan, and they don't know how to do it. So the Torah is teaching us over here, in the construction of the Mishkan, Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, you have an obligation, you know better than them, you have an obligation to teach them how to build the Mishkan. Talking about a spiritual Mishkan within ourselves.
It's the story if you know Aleph and he doesn't. You
Correct.
Aleph.
The mitzvah of tzedakah, by the way, of giving tzedakah, if I have 2 cents, 2 cents, I'm broke, I have 2 cents. Well, they stopped making pennies, so whatever. But I have 2 nickels, until they stop that, and you don't have any nickels, I have to give you a nickel. I myself am getting tzedakah, but if compared to you I'm rich, then I have to have a mitzvah to give you tzedakah. And same thing spiritual. If you know something about Yiddishkeit, you can't come along to a Jew and say, listen, I know nothing about Yiddishkeit, so how am I supposed to teach you? Yeah, so the Rebbe says, you know Aleph? You're Aleph, that's all you know, the letter Aleph, and another Jew doesn't know it, go teach him. Compared to him, you're rich, because you know the letter Aleph, and they don't.
So where does humility come?
Humility has nothing to do with that. On the contrary, that is humility.
You can learn from anyone. That's true humility.
Nice.
Well, the humility here comes from him recognizing that it came from Hashem.
The humility is
That's the-
not only that it's coming from Hashem. Humility means that knowing who I am, I'm talking every person saying, knowing who I am, I should be better than I actually am. And if somebody else would have given the powers Hashem gave me, they would even be better.
I love how they say that Moshe is Eved Hashem. Nobody else is called Eved Hashem. That moniker is like the highest title. But he's
Yeah, but it's not-
Anav Mikol Adam. He is the most humble out of everybody. So how can you have that dichotomy of being the highest level of like attainment of attachment to God, but you're the humblest person?
Yeah, but it's more than that. If a father tells a child, or they used to at least, they don't do it anymore. If a parent tells a child, you have to listen to me because I'm your father. Is that ego?
No.
It's reality. Correct?
Right.
If a boss says to the worker, listen, I'm the boss, you're the worker, I'm paying you, you're going to do what I want, not what you want. Correct?
Right.
That's not ego. Okay. Moshe, she just mentioned, right? Moshe was the most humble person that ever lived. If somebody asked Moshe Rabbeinu, who is the greatest Jewish prophet that ever lived?
He wouldn't say himself.
Yes, he would. If he would, that he'd be a liar.
That's part of humility, is knowing your
Torah says, Torah's emes.
I
In Torah it says there was never a prophet as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. Correct?
right.
If somebody asked Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the greatest prophet that ever lived? And Moshe Rabbeinu said, not me, he would be sinning as a liar. If somebody asked Moshe Rabbeinu, who did God communicate with? Peh el peh, mouth to mouth. Who was the one that got the Torah, received Torah in Har Sinai? And Moshe Rabbeinu would say, not me. He would be transgressing the sin of lying. Okay? Knowing who you are and what you are, that I, let's say, know more than you and therefore I could teach you. I don't mean me. I'm saying that I know more than you and therefore I could teach you. That's not ego. That's a fact. I learned more. I'm teaching you who learned less. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking whatever, right? Okay. What is humility? Humility means, and this is what Moshe Rabbeinu maintained. Yes, God spoke to me mouth to mouth, and yes, I was the great. But if somebody else would have been given my abilities, they would even be greater.
Got it.
Which means, not that you don't know who you are. Chassidus says, just equally, just like a person needs to know their faults, to know what to rectify, they need to know their talents of what to use and utilize. If Hashem bless somebody with an artistic talent and they don't use it because, I'm such an ugly drawer or whatever, I'm a terrible painter, artist. They're wasting a talent Hashem gave. Ego doesn't mean I don't know who I am and I'm the teacher and you're the student, or I'm the boss and you're the worker, I'm the parent and you're the child. It means, humility means that somebody thinks, and really not says, but really feels that I really should be better. In simple English, it means I really should be better than I am. So what am I priding myself with? Okay, let's go another interesting thing over here. When the women did a lot of phenomenal things in the Mishkan. It says in the Pasuk, the women, Tovu Esoizim, here. The women wove,
Which pasuk?
Perek Lamed Hey Pasuk Chavav. B'chol hanoshim asher nasa liban eisana b'chachma, those women that Hashem gave chachma, Tovu Esoizim. They wove, simply means from the goat skin, right? So Rashi says, okay, and if Rashi is from the Gemara, but Rashi says, means a kid understands it. This was an unbelievable expertise that they, while the wool was still on the goat, they wove it while it was, not that they cut it off, they wove it while it was still on the goat.
Does that hurt the goat a lot?
Okay, so by the way, the commentaries discuss why isn't it Tsar Balei Chaim, why isn't it torturing animals? And the answer is, if it's for a benefit, then it's not halachically torturing animals. You can't torture animals for no reason. Shechting an animal, doing shchita, slaughtering an animal is torture. If it's for a purpose, it doesn't matter. Why did the women do that? Why couldn't they just shear the wool off the goats or whatever and then do it? So that explains here, and they weren't even commanded to do this. They did it on their own. They were commanded to weave the tapestry, whatever they needed to weave. So the Rebbe explains over here, what does it mean? What did they do? Tov was seizim like this. The women wanted to do the best for God's home. You do the best. You don't give inferior quality for God's home. It's Hashem's home. You do the best. So it says like this. If they would have sheared the wool off the goat and then woven it, it wouldn't be any more the status of an animal. It would be more plant life. what the women wanted, and they weren't even commanded. That's what's interesting. What the women wanted to do is the weaving should be while it was still on the animal, so then it's an animal level which is higher than plant. And the women wanted to do this the best possible way, and not only that, after you cut wool off, shear the wool off the animal, after a while it starts drying up a little. It's not the same. It's not the same freshness as while it's still on the animal. The women wanted to bring the best possible gift to Hashem, the most fresh threads to weave with, while it was still on the animal, so then they're not giving plant donation or inanimate donation, they're giving an animal donation to Hashem. What does it teach us? They weren't commanded to do it. When a person wants to build a home for Hashem, meaning doing Torah mitzvahs, you do Torah mitzvahs, a person is supposed to do it the best possible way, even if they weren't commanded to do it. You have this if you ever did construction in your house or remodeling in the house, the workers will try to get away with whatever they can. With whatever they can, they'll try to get away, right? We all know that. We all lived it. They try to get away with the cheapest, the inferior, as long as you don't know, they don't care. A lot of times when it comes to Jews doing Torah mitzvahs, a lot of Jews will get away with, how can I cut corners in this mitzvah and do this, I'll come late, leave early, so what? They'll have to be there the whole time. And, they like to get away with, kids like to do that also. They test you on what they can get away with, right? So this story teaches us that the women, for building the home of Hashem, they said, we're doing it the best. Even we weren't even commanded, we could have done it the way exactly he told us to do it. The commandments, it would have been kosher, 100% kosher, the way Hashem cut the wool off the sheep and the goats and do it that way. Hashem said, the women said, no. We want to do it in the best possible way. Because for Hashem's home, we do it the best possible way. The same thing, there's a pasuk in Chumash that says, Kol chelev laHashem. Okay? Kol chelev means the best things you give off to Hashem. Hashem doesn't want that a Jew should give his whole day to Hashem. Hashem wants us to work, Hashem wants us to eat, Hashem wants us to drink, Hashem wants to make a living, to live. All Hashem asks, though, when you're giving me, just give me the best. Give me the first part of the day when you're still awake. Don't give me the end of the day, nothing to do. So, okay. Hashem said, Kol chelev laHashem. What was the difference all the way at the beginning of creation? Cain and Hevel. Hevel gave good stuff, and Cain gave garbage. So Hashem accepted Hevel's sacrifice, and he didn't sacrifice God. So Cain killed Hevel. What was the difference? Why did Hashem accept Hevel's? Because he gave the best. And Cain gave the junkiest. So Hashem, this story in the Mishkan teaches us how to build our own Mishkan, so to speak, that you have to do the best you can, just get it going. Okay, one more thing, and another interesting thing, going back to the beginning of the Parsha. It says like this, Sheishis Yamim, Perek Lamed Hey Pasuk Beis, it says, Sheishis Yamim Te'aseh Melacha. Anybody who knows Hebrew, Te'aseh is passive. Ta'aseh, like it says in the says, Sheishis Yamim Ta'aseh is active, do work. Te'aseh Melacha, Te'aseh means the work should be considered done. Passive. Not you doing it, the work should be done. So what does this mean? We're not talking about Shabbos over here. It says 6 days work. Shabbos, work on Shabbos is the holy day. Right at the beginning of the Parsha. Torah is telling us like this. In fact, Zohar says it, that when Shabbos comes, it should be considered to you as if all the work is done. I don't have to think about business. I don't have to think about work. I don't have to think about that. Everything is done. Sheishis Yamim Te'aseh Melachtecha that says in this week's Parsha, meaning when Shabbos comes, there's no work. It's all done already. It's finished. It's done already. I don't have to think about it. But what does this mean in the practical level? So we have, I'll give you a few stories that bring out this point. A businessman that had in Yiddish it's called kaloshin. Kaloshin in English are called galoshes, which the guys in California don't know what it is. The guys out east, right, they know what Canada, they know what galoshes are, right? You know what galoshes are?
Sure, red.
Okay, good. You have East blood in you, East cold blooded. Okay.
Sounds like a snack.
So a guy once came to the Tzemach Tzedek.
Skechers.
Sounds like a snack.
What is galoshes?
Yeah, what
It's
is
it's a piece of rubber. It looks like a shoe. You put your shoes into it, protects it from the rain. It's a mini boot
Got it.
that only protects the shoe.
It's like
I can't deal with you illiterates from this. Go on, go out east. You know what galoshes are. Okay. So this guy had a boot company. A chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek had a boot company. And he was really involved in the business. So he once came to the Tzemach Tzedek, and the Tzemach Tzedek said to him, you know, it's interesting. I've always seen feet in a boot, but a head in a boot, that I never saw. He said, your whole head is so involved in the business. It's like your head is in the boots. He said, I never saw such a thing. I only saw feet in a boot. I never saw a head in the boot. In fact, it says in Pirkei Avos, it says, you're wondering things. Oh yeah, Yegia kapecha kiseichel, ashrecha v'tevlach. In Pirkei Avos it says, Yegia kapecha. If you work with the effort of your hands, tevlach, it's good. Ashrecha, you're good in this world, the world to come. It's Yegia kapecha kiseichel. You should eat the work from the palm of your hand. So the Rebbe explains in Chassidus, it says, what does it mean Yegia kapecha? It says, the work should be the work of your hands, not your head. And that's what it means is like, obviously, you want to run a business, you have to use your head. But the question is, what is the purpose of the business? What's the goal? Is it to make money? Or is it to have a family, to be able to run a home according to Yiddishkeit, pay tuition, Shabbos meals, guests, all. So it's not so much, of course, a businessman has to put his head in the business. If not, he's not going to make a business. The question is, what is the ultimate purpose? I'll give you a simple example where you see this a lot. It's getting late. Where you see this a lot. People are so busy in the work, they forget about the family. They forget about the wife, they forget about the kids. I mean, are you working to be able to support a family, to have a family, or the family is to work? I mean, so it says, Yegia kapecha kiseichel, you have to work. Your head, it doesn't say Yegia roshecha. It doesn't say the work of your head. It says the work of your hands, right, has to be in the work. But your head, meaning your purpose, your goal, should be in something higher. There was a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, his name was Rabbi Yosef Kletzker. Now, Kletzker in Yiddish means wood. He was a very wealthy lumber merchant. Okay? At one time, this is pre-computers, pre-calculators, when people use their brains. Not like today, nobody thinks. They use their brains. And he was making a reckoning of his business. And he's adding up, putting in tons of numbers, and he's adding it up. You draw the line, and he make the sachakol, the sum total, and he wrote, Einad Milvado. There's nothing but God. It wasn't that he was playing games. He was such a holy man that he realized the sachakol of his business. What is the goal and function of the sachakol? The sum total of my business is Einad Milvado. There's only God, nothing else. And he wasn't showing off to somebody cute, This is what he did. Because by him, and that's what the Torah says, Te'aseh malacha. Yes, you have to do the work, but the work should be considered secondary, inferior, not primary. The work is only a vessel to have a family, to do mitzvahs, to, build a mishkan or build a shul. But
Amen.
that's what, okay, it's 9 o'clock. Anyway, Mitzvah Shalom, this Wednesday we're starting Hilchos Pesach on Zoom for men and women. Until then, everybody have a great... They started fighting in Gaza again today. We should only hear good news.
Amen.
Hashem should make all the miracles happen right away and finish them off. Until then, everybody have a great evening. Take care. Bye.
I was looking at the 613, it was one
So
time
my
when
kids
one of them
turn on-
was killing off the
Rabbi,
kid.
Wednesday is
Only,
on Zoom?
only on Zoom.
Rabbi, you said the Torah speaks in
Yeah.
human terms. How do I say that to me?
It's not a pasuk. It's a Dibra, Torah,
But I think like you can't.
Dalet
go
Beis
out and
Reishei,
kill someone.
speak.
Yeah, I know.
Torah,
It's like-
Beloshin B'nei Adam. in human terms.
And one more question on Shabbos, Malachim Aleph.
Take care.
Vayakhel Aleph, you were talking about the pasuk that
When?
you were talking about in the Torah, the pasuk that Eliyahu says to the.
Yeah, Amos atem peitchem ashtei seifim.
Okay, that's the pasuk. Can I have it? It was such an amazing pasuk.
It's not, it's a pasuk in Chumash. I mean,
It's in Malachim.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I don't know why I remembered where it was.
nice meeting you.
Yes, you go.
It was Chaf Aleph Yud Chet. Yud Chet Chaf Aleph.
Yeah, because we only start the second half. Yeah, here it is.
Rabbi, I have a question.
ויש אלוהים כולם והם עמוסי אתם פסחים משתה. עם השם אלוקים, לוחר ועם הבא לוחר. By the way, what did you run away right after the speech? You ran away.
I had to go to my parents. I
okay.
couldn't make them wait. This
So
was
everything was good.
Baruch Hashem.
Okay, good. You son was back at war or not yet?
What?
You called him back up?
I hope
Or
not.
if you have
He's been at
grapes,
home for like what, a
figs,
week and a
pomegranate
half?
states,
Okay, let me see. Close it like this.
What other foods have an afterblood?
Rabbi, how,
Either this
how
or
come
yeah,
Esther doesn't, after Haman and the
May I take it for a sec?
Yeah, sure.
kids are...
How do I close this now?
Close what?
I'm on the computer. Okay, I'm gonna just do this.
Yeah, that's fine. After Haman and his kids are executed, and Esther goes back home and just stays with Ahasuerus for the rest of her life,